Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well. Thank you for stopping by. I'm sorry I'm a bit late to the St. Patrick's Day festivities, but I did do a full leprechaun look a few years back. If you'd like to see that, it's on Instagram and Twitter. Those links are below. And welcome to part 3 of head casting. We are getting into the sanding and the coating portion, so we could go ahead and get ready to sculpt some awesome things. So sit back, relax, and let's just get into the footage. I begin sanding with a small grit paper with a sander. My cast is a little bit damp at this point, not 100% cured, but I did have plaster casting strips heavily embedded around the neck and the back of the head area. So what I'm doing here is I'm getting those out before my cast is 100% cured and dried, because if I were to pull or sand those out, big chunks may come with it. And as you see on the sandpaper that I'm using here, when the sandpaper looks like it's moving the material around and it looks like putty, that's when you know that it's not 100% dry. Now I like to work with my head cast in several different phases of the curing process. Here I'm going through with a chisel and getting out some of the bulk around the neck that was from the plastic that protected our neck during the gauze strip process. And it's a lot easier to get this tool in and out of those areas up under the chin. I just would not do this around the smaller areas, around the eyes, the eyebrows, the nose, and the lips. But this is a little bit more putty-like at this point, and it's letting me get out some of those fibers that are embedded, and it's harder to work with your hands in smaller places when you're using sandpaper, and also harder to use a sander in those locations. So that's why you see me go through at this point and start to remove some of the bulk around these areas. Do be mindful, no matter what stage that you're working in with this cast, not to ever lay it on its face flat down. So just move it from one side to another. Sanding my base, as you can see that it broke in two areas, but I did use Gorilla Glue to put those back together. This was just what I had left over when I poured my mixture. You see me put this into the box. So what I'm doing is I'm going to use this as a base when I sculpt, so that I can turn it without touching the sculpt itself, but I'm not going to attach it, so that it's easier to store later on. When I want to remove a heavy amount of bulk and texture, I use a more grittier sandpaper. I will be listing the papers that I use in the description below. You could tell in this process of sanding that the cast is still not cured, like I said before, and you'll notice that your sandpaper becomes unusable very quickly. You should be able to run a sander and pass over this several times instead of 2 or 3 times. So I placed my cast into the oven at 150 degrees. It's a convection oven, which is more ideal, but I would not push it beyond 150 degrees, and continue to check it every 30 minutes. Now, how do you know that your cast is completely dry? For me, in my experience, that once I place my hand onto my cast, it almost immediately strips moisture from my hands, and it will also have this powdery feel to it. And if you run sandpaper or a tool over it, it will come off in a fine powder. I am using my hands and sandpaper to go over and get everything completely smooth. And as you see here on this side, that I have an issue when I cast this with my ear, the plastic in my hair coming into some weird area in the back of my head. But so because of that, I'm going to make up for it for the bulk that was on the other side, because my hair did fall. So at this point, you need to fine tune it to what you see is happening with your cast. It might not be perfect 100%, and you can actually compensate for things like that, like the eye socket. One was covered, one was not, so one's has more of an indentation than the other. And what happens is this is going to give me, in the ways that I sculpt, the ability to change the type of sculpt that I put over my eyes. Now be sure with a light hand to go over the features of the face to make sure that you're not applying too much pressure, because if you have an air bubble that you're not aware of, it will break off. So I know it looks like I'm being very aggressive, but it's just for the time lapse of this video. Just be easy on this part. And here I go in with a tool. You can use butter knives. Some people that don't have sculpting tools like I do, you can use a spoon that keeps a round curved shape. And you see me go through and making sure that I have features carved out. I have sharper edges. I have the indentions in the nostril. That way when I'm sculpting, I know exactly where to put the holes so that I can breathe. I had loss of detail around the eyebrow, so I go through and I carve that out to match the other side a little bit more. This is the fine tuning and what you see that your cast is going to need. And if you're not used to this process, just finesse it, just sharpen it just a little bit more. Now during the sanding process, you might notice you have small little bubbles or little holes that are throughout it, some indents. Try to smooth those out by hand a couple of passes, and if it seems like it's deeper and deeper, stop sanding, because what you're going to be able to do is when you seal that with your sealant, it will smooth over and it not become an issue. As you see the back of the head here, I left the bulk onto the left to compensate a little bit more for the casting process and the mold that happened onto the right. So this is just when you go through and you make sure everything is as good as it can be. I still struggle with doing a big project like this. I'm not gonna lie, this is a really big project to take, but it is fun. You can do it at home, you can do it by yourself, and this will go a long way if you're someone that likes to go all out for your Halloween costumes or you're a big cosplayer. This is a project that if you're interested in getting your hands on and getting a good idea about sculpting, I think this will help you learn a lot in the process. So now it's time for the glue, and I didn't think that you wanted to see me spend 15-20 minutes gluing, but I go through with Gorilla Glue and I place down a couple layers over onto my base. So why do I use Gorilla Glue instead of a spray? Well, I had more of it, first of all. Second of all, as you see the base place in the back, it dries with a little tinge of color to it. And this gives you the opportunity to see what's truly covered, spots that you may miss, because once you start to sculpt on this, you will know very quickly because it will stick to it. So those are the reasons why I do that, and also use a foam brush is to get rid of any streaks from a brush. Now I used 8 layers of glue for my cast. For me, I found out that 8 was the magic number for me, but it's going to be up to what you need and what you find easy to work with. Here is the final piece. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you liked that I busted it up into 3 different parts, giving you more information. Let me know if you're going to be doing this. I would love to see how it comes out. And if you'd like to see sneak peeks, behind the scenes footage, or vote on my next look, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter. Those links are below. And if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. It lets me know if I'm doing a good job. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.